An NFL Network official apologized Monday for what he called a production mistake that led to several naked Cincinnati Bengals players being seen in the background of a taped interview in the Bengals locker room following Sunday's game at Buffalo. Well, the apology did little to calm concerns of Bengals tackle and union rep Andrew Whitworth during an interview with reporters on Monday. He said this: "This is a big issue for me. This is my office space. I shouldn't have to change in it and be in front of people I don't know or really don't have any purpose of being near me other than the fact that they're interviewing other people. If I was a woman, this would be a completely different subject and it would be a complete firestorm. We can't always just serve women and everyone else. Men deserve a right too. We have rights. We have privacy. We deserve all the things we want as well. As a man, I think it's right the policy is changed." Gentlemen, you have spent decades in locker rooms. What's your reaction, Stephen A., to Whitworth's comments here?
Well, I don't totally agree with him, but I appreciate his sentiments. And I appreciate his courage in expressing what he expressed. If we want to be honest and forthright in what we have to say, Skip, Molly, the reality of the situation is there are an abundance of modifications that have taken place in the world of sports, and it largely pertains to women.
Yeah.
We do understand they were necessary. We do understand it was the correct thing to do.
Yep.
But the level of sensitivity that has been heightened in an effort to cater to women has been at the expense on occasion of some of the things that men have to endure. You know, you have to watch your mouth. You have to watch your language. You have to watch the way things can be perceived, even though they may not in any way reflect what the perception is that may be out there in terms of guys' behavior and things of that nature. There's all types of stuff that goes on that affects men in this day and age. And what Whitworth is saying is that, well, what about the concerns that men have?
Yeah.
And so when he brings that up, I can appreciate his position because it almost seems like in a flagrantly concerted effort to appeal to women who, by and large, let's face reality, we're being honest, were treated unfairly for a vast majority of time in the world of sports in terms of locker room access and things of that nature. The flip side to it is that, you know, men now find themselves in a precarious position of having to mind their manners and be careful about every little thing once you get off the football field and what have you. And he's saying, my God, this is our office space. We got to watch ourselves because we don't know how anything is going to be perceived. Like if he's walking around and he doesn't have any clothes on and there's a woman in the locker room, well, he's like, now we got to put a towel on. We got to do X, Y, and Z. Now, I understand his position. Here's where he's wrong. Is that really a big deal? Don't you, is it modification necessary from time to time? Do you really have to go with doing things the way that you always did it just because you always did it that way? And by the way, I also think that one of the things that he's ignoring is the lack of consideration professional athletes tend to have towards the media. I am in a beautiful position. Skip Bayless is in a beautiful position. You're in a beautiful position. But by and large, most folks in the media are not sitting in the privileged position that we're in. They're not making the same amount of money. They're not on national television. They don't have the same voices, the level of access, et cetera, et cetera. So as a result, most folks in the media are working their tails off, just trying to do their job, trying to get an interview as quick as they possibly can so they can get the hell out of there, write their articles, and go home.
Do your stand-up.
And go home. And these professional organizations, and the athletes, but also primarily the organizations and the leagues who I don't believe, you know, are considerate enough towards the media, foster this mentality where the level of disrespect is so flagrant that one can't help but sit there and look at them and say, what the hell is wrong with y'all? You know, when somebody, listen, you come off a football field, you can take off your pads. Would it hurt you to sit there and wait 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes to take a shower so the media can come in?
Many guys do.
And do. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that? How about, you know, but we got to wait the 10 to 15 minutes before we go in the locker room because they want time for emotions to die down. And they don't want to make sure that the media doesn't have access to raw emotions emanating from the contest and the encounter that you just had. So I understand you get it, but my point is, it's all a part of sports. You know, listen, here's the thing. and I've often said this to Skip, and I'll say it again on national television. I have said this facetiously. I do not mean this in any way. But I have sat there and said, ask them about their wife. Ask them about their family. Ask them about a girlfriend or something like that. Because how can you have a problem answering questions about sports? This is what you do. So if you're going to make a big deal about that, well, then let me give you something to make a big deal about.
Wait, I'm confused.
I don't mean it literally. I'm saying facetiously, ask personal things to irritate them.
You're saying
so
this
you
is
can
not
understand.
a big deal.
This is not a big deal.
Okay.
It's not. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying it literally.
Yeah.
If you come to me and you ask me about something that I said on First Take, this is what I do for a living.
Yeah.
You have every right to ask. But if you ask me about my personal life, I might curse you out.
Yeah.
So if the media is not coming in there to ask you about your personal life, and they're coming in there to you to ask about the game, why do you give them such a hard time? Every time you do stuff like that, you create this divide, this figurative wall that has to be leaped over. And as a result, you find yourself in these precarious situations where access is granted, where cameras are rolling and stuff like that. It's not like they're trying to do it on purpose. They're just trying to get in there to get as much as they can, as quick as they can, so they can get the hell out and go home. Nobody's trying to linger and lurk around. And last point, from a basketball perspective, I personally had this discussion with the executive director of the Players Association, Ms. Roberts. You understand? Because I didn't like what she had said last year about how the media doesn't need to be in the locker room. She was wonderful. She was very respectful to me. I'm not casting any aspersions
after
on her
games or before games? You're talking about media and before games.
Before games.
Yes.
She was of the mindset, I don't even understand why the media's in here. And I literally said to her, you really think they want to be in there? You think they don't have anything better to do than to stand around? These guys, they see media coming in there. They'll go back to the trainer's room. They don't give you any access. Like you really want to be around them and you don't have better things to do. Maybe if you sat up there and spoke to them for a few minutes and gave them the access, they'd be done with you and they'd move on. They would. Trust me.
Agreed.
And I think these are the kind of things that need to be said.
Okay. Appreciate everything you just said. Now, back to Andrew Whitworth's problems with this process. I sympathize. In some ways, I empathize because we have been part and parcel of that uncivilized process that we get forced to go through. Oftentimes, especially earlier in my career, I found it not only uncivilized, I found it unproductive because for those who haven't experienced it before, there's a media crush, especially around the star players. So if I can go back to my days in Dallas with the triplets, Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, you try to go interview them after a game at their locker, and it's just a madhouse.
Like a rat race.
And it's microphones stuck over microphones, and I'm a columnist, and I just want to hear. I actually want to get this guy off to the side and get something, that, as you would, to get a little inside insight from that guy. But I have to wait out the scrum, and the scrum is out of control. And whoever's trying to dress beside Troy Aikman or Michael Irvin, they can't even get to their lockers, and they're mad about it because they want to go home. The game's over, and their families are waiting outside in the tunnel, right? And so there's got to be a better way. Well, for a while, Tex Schramm, the late, great Tex Schramm, kind of the godfather of the Dallas Cowboys, he decided when women needed to be in the locker room, remember, he had a coach in Tom Landry who said it was against his religious principles to have women come in to where men are trying to get undressed, right? So Tex Schramm said, let's create a room across the hall that will be the interview room, and we'll have little podiums for all the players. You guys request who you want to come across the hall, and you can interview them civilized. The defense will come over with bathrobes on, and then the offense will be getting dressed and come over in their suits, coats and ties. Okay, it works fine, except some of the players would say, you know what? I'm not going to make that walk across the hall today. I don't want to talk to these idiots. We lost today, so I'm going down the hall. I'm going up to the bus, right? Or wherever they're going, okay? They're going to their cars. So my point is, I don't know a better way than this. And what Andrew Whitworth has to get through his head as the player rep, that what happens right after a game in the media availability, what happens on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, media availability, is crucial to the lifeblood of the National Football League. Am I right about that? Because it's free publicity. It's promoting and fueling the greatest game in America.
They don't care.
They don't care, but they need to realize that.
They do.
This is the Marshawn Lynch argument.
Sit on your locker. You know, I guarantee you sit there for 15, 20 minutes after a game, I promise you, people will get in and out as quickly as they possibly can for the most part because they don't have a desire. They want to get their work done and go home.
Yep.
Great conversation. I wish we had more time, but we have to move on.